What's up guys? A mafia gang is destroying Japan from within, and this is a huge lesson for India. In the year 18,814, a child named Yamaguchi Kiichi was born in a poor family of a fisherman. Kiichi was a fisherman and belonged to a group of others who, besides supplying laborers to the port, also used to commit petty thefts. In the year 1915, Yamaguchi Kiichi started his own gang with just 50 laborers called Yamaguchi-gumi. Their identity would be tattoos all over the body of every member, and to prove his loyalty before joining the gang, every person would have to sign his name. Little finger will have to be sacrificed. In the year 1940, a poor fisherman started this gang. Yamaguchi-gumi became the most dangerous crime mafia syndicate in the history of Japan in just a few years, in which 2 lakh gangsters and 5,200 gangs joined. They used to do all kinds of illegal work in Japan, from prostitution to extortion, from smuggling of drugs to trafficking of humans, in broad daylight, and the police could not do anything to harm them. In the year 1955, Yamaguchi-gumi also formed its own political party, won the elections too, and in 1955, Nobusuke Kishi became Japan's first prime minister belonged to this gang. By the 1950s, all the top celebrities of Japan, from businessmen to the biggest politicians, everyone had become their puppets and danced on their tunes. This gang had completely captured 36 out of 47 districts of Japan, so much so that by the 1960s, no prime minister could be elected in Japan without their consent. But let me tell you one very ironic thing: despite committing so many innocent crimes, a police survey was conducted in Japan, and it was found out that out of 10, every Japanese person said that they feel that these gangs should exist in Japan and they are a necessary evil for the country. Even the Japanese police themselves used to praise them. According to them, these civil rights were portrayed as honorable Japanese traditions and national heroes of the country. So why did the Japanese people and the Japanese media love these dangerous goons and criminals of the underworld so much? And if they did, then why did the Japanese government pass a law in 1992 that banned these gangs from Japan forever? So today, if you go to every street in Japan, you will find posters outside houses and shops which say that the entry of gang mafias is banned here. So what happened that the political parties and the government, which were running on their strength, banned this gang culture forever? So friends, this may sound a little strange, but organized crime or gang culture in Japan is not a new thing at all. It has been going on in Japan for the last 300 years. It is called yuha in their language. In the 17th century, there was a mafia syndicate of about 750 gangs called yuha, which used to commit petty crimes like theft, gambling and drug peddling. But yuhas were not like any ordinary gang. They had some values and principles, and they always used to work in a very well-defined hierarchy. In these, the boss was called Oya-bun, i.e. leader, and the members were considered kobo, i.e. child, who were very loyal to their boss. There used to be a custom that kobus would often cut off their little finger and gift it to their Oya-bun as soon as they joined the gang, so that they could show their loyalty towards them. Even today, if you see, every yuha in Japan has a cut finger and they have tattoos all over their body because this is their identity. But currently, the biggest yuha gang in Japan is named Yamaguchi-gumi, which was started by a fisherman in the 2nd century. Yamaguchi Kiichi was a fisherman who, along with a small group of Yakuza workers, started a modern-day Yamaguchi-gumi gang. Now, because the Yamaguchi gang was made up of the entire labor community, and during World War II, after the disaster, the real estate business was booming in Japan, so this gang started taking construction contracts from people and protection money from newly built nightclubs, which started giving them a good profit. Now, Yamaguchi-gumi gang became very strong, but even here it was just an ordinary gang like the rest. Japan surrendered, then on one hand, under the pressure of elite powers, the US was forced to release many people of the Japanese Communist Party, whom they had imprisoned after the invasion. On the other hand, during this time, the USSR started giving massive funding to a party there, JCP, to establish its supremacy in Japan, due to which this party started spreading rapidly in Japan and started spreading its socialist ideology. What happened was that this ideology started spreading so fast that at one time there used to be only 100 members in this party, but at the same time, within just 2 years, the members increased to 1 lakh, that is, in just 2 years, the membership of their party increased. It had increased by 1000%, and as a result, in the 1949 elections, the Japanese people made the JCP win the elections. Now, obviously, seeing the growing popularity of communism among the people of Japan, the US became very insecure, and that is why the then US Army General Douglas MacArthur, who was in charge of Japan after the US invasion, first issued orders to ban the JCP, and secondly, he launched a massive anti-communism drive in which he fired 11,000 government employees aligned with the Communist Party from their jobs. He did everything to stop the communist influence in Japan by doing anything, even by despringing. Then he saw Yamaguchi-gumi gang. He thought that it is a gang which has connections with all the top elites of Japan. It rules over almost 3/4 area of Japan, and every child in Japan is scared of it. If we can bring them under our control, they can become our biggest weapon against USSR. That is why in late 1950, CIA started getting closer to UJUS on the behest of US government. First of all, CIA hired UJUS members on its payroll and started getting them to attack people of Communist Party. Like one of the most infamous cases of that time was Masukawa train derailment. In this, on the behest of CIA, UJ members derailed a train in which 3 people died and many were injured. CIA's motive behind doing this was very clear, that they wanted to put the blame of this entire incident on JCP, which would spread the fear of communists among the people. To create the image of the party as a terrorist organization, the CIA kidnapped him through one of its famous lieutenants and did not release him for a year. The CIA kept him in its custody and sent such warnings to other writers. The US executed many such small and big kidnappings and attacks in Japan through the USS, due to which the fear of this gang kept on increasing in the country. But the US on the other hand was making a lot of money in this entire mission, because the same CIA which was bent on disarming the Japanese army and police on one hand, was arming these Japanese mafia gangs on the other hand, due to which they were earning millions of dollars at that time. Basically, the CIA was selling US-made pistols to the Yakuza, and that too at a high price. That is, the pistol which was available in the US for $100, the CIA was selling the same pistol to the Yakuza for $2,000. What happened was that with the support of the CIA, the Yakuza started drug smuggling as well, which was generating almost half of the income of the Yakuza at that time. But on the other hand, its impact on the Japanese society was so bad that due to this drug smuggling, drug use suddenly scaled up in Japan within 4 years. And yes, whatever story I am telling about this evolution of the CIA, all this is in the CIA's own declassified documents. The CIA itself is basically proudly saying that because of them the Yakuza were able to become such a big organized crime gang because, as I said, the CIA was hell-bent on eliminating USSR influence from Japan, and for this, taking the help of a big organized mafia gang like the Yakuza was a good strategy. Now it is obvious that this strategy of C was quite selfish, but this act made this small criminal gang of Japan Yamaguchi-gumi a giant by giving it arms and funding. After this, gradually, Yuge started entering Japanese media as well. Actually in 1946, as soon as a third-generation leader named Towaka Kazu took over the throne of this gang, he started a talent management agency in which basically Yuge used to hire famous film stars and celebrity singers and produce movies and music albums with them. Yuge had worked with many famous singers like Misore Habara and Tabata Yoshio. They were even managing many famous sportsmen like the famous Japanese wrestler Riki Dojin. That is, Yuge was a part of the Japanese media under the leadership of Towaka Kazuo. He had become a big name in the Japanese entertainment industry as well. Japanese actors, producers, directors, athletes believed everything because many common people became stars overnight by associating with him, and obviously Jesus had enough black money to launch movies, big projects, music videos, which he wanted to whitewash by investing in the media industry. You know, exactly like it used to happen in Bollywood in the 1980s and 90s, D-gangs used to make movies to whitewash their black money, and as soon as the movies became hits, their illegal money automatically became legal, and that is why if you see, many big Bollywood celebrities were often seen with the goons of D-gangs in that era. Anil Kapoor, Salman Khan, Rishi Kapoor, that you met Dawood Ibrahim in 1988 and you were having tea with him in Dubai. Preeti Zinta herself had said that her film Chori Chori Chupka Chupka was produced by D-gang and she was forced to work in it, and then they had to do it secretly, and you were stunned and you said that you were getting extortion threats from the Mumbai and the world. In fact, due to Bollywood, the status and influence of Dawood Ibrahim and his gang had increased a lot in India. So, something similar happened in Japan as well. Yamaguchi-gumi gang became a famous gang by associating with the Japanese film industry. But during 1950, an incident happened which made Yaku literally a hero of the people. Actually, in 1950, in Kobe City, another gang, Sanku Jin gang, which included Chinese Tainis and Koreans, kidnapped some policemen. But as we saw, the police did not have any weapons, and that is why they were helpless. Leave aside their people, they were not even able to save their own lives. That is why the police was forced to ask for help from the Yamaguchi gang. Yamaguchi immediately said yes to this and he attacked the Sanku-jin gangs and almost completely eliminated them from Kobe City. Now, two things happened because of this. 1. The police kidnapped Yamaguchi. They got suppressed under the favors, and secondly, after eliminating the Sangu-kozen gang who were not Japanese, the image of Yamaguchi gang became like a nationalist gang. People got such a view in their minds that Yamaguchi are good people who work for the benefit of the country. People literally started considering them as their idols, started considering them as their heroes because this gang had eliminated a non-Japanese foreigner gang and protected their country. From here the fate of the Japanese changed completely. Now a major cultural shift had come in Japan. Gang culture increased there suddenly because the Japanese youth had started trusting a gang more than the police and the army, as per the US government data itself. That from 1958 to 1963, in just 5 years, the Yakuza gang members had increased from 150 to nearly 2 lakhs, which means just imagine that there were more Japanese gangsters than the Japanese army. Many new small and big gangs had also emerged. During this period, approximately 500 gangs were operating in the whole of Japan, and out of these 5,200 gangs, about 500 gangs were under Yamaguchi-gumi, which had a total of 9,440 employees. That means if I describe their structure in short, Yamaguchi-gumi had a top boss, that is, Oya, under whom there were 103 bosses. By this time, the Yamaguchi gang had grown so much that out of the 47 districts of Japan, they had taken 36 districts under their control completely, which means in a way they had a strong control over the whole of Japan, and Yamaguchi had opened a total of 5,000 companies in different industries, from which they were earning 10 billion yen annually, and I am talking about 1950. Don't forget that, by the way, these criminal gangs used to do business so openly, but why did the police praise them? Well, one reason for this is that from their annual profits they used to give about 500 million yen weekly to the police. So now you tell me, in return of so much money, is it right to praise criminals? From all this it was clear that in Japan Yamaguchi gang financially express criminals are criminals after all. They do not have any legal powers. This deficiency was also felt by Yamaguchi, and that is why to increase his political power he started supporting politicians also. This was in giving them protection, in clearing the opponents of politicians in political rallies, in deleting them. They used to help, but in 1955 Yamaguchi started his own political party, which by the way is the ruling party of Japan till date. In fact, within a few years of forming the party he made his candidate the PM. The story covered in the famous Indonesian political magazine Tempo tells that former Japanese PM Shinzo Abe's grandfather Nobusuke Kishi was earlier a member of Yamaguchi's gang, and he is also the founder of today's Liberal Democratic Party. Actually, the history of the foundation of this party is also very interesting. Famous U.S. journalist Tim Weiner told in his book Legacy of S that when the elections were held in 1949, after that the left party was becoming strong. Then Nobusuke Kishi brought all the right wing together with the consent and help of the CIA, and using the funding of the Yamaguchi gang, he established a Liberal Democratic Party (LDP). The CIA's backing was so strong that in its very first election in 1955, LDP won the elections with a full swing majority, and gangster Nobusuke Kishi became the first Prime Minister of Japan who was affiliated to Yamaguchi-gumi Yakuza. Now, in a way, Yakuza were ruling Japan legally, so what was the harm in their gangs getting legal status in Japan? You can see these photos. Such gangs have been there in Japan since 1960. In 1960, when US President Eisenhower was about to visit Japan, at the same time, people of the Communist Party were protesting nationwide. Usually, to suppress such protests, governments send their police forces, but the Japanese government gave this job to the Yuha gang. 40,000 Yuha gang members took part in the protests going on across the country. For the next several decades, Yamaguchi-gumi gang ruled blindly. There was no one to stop them. But in July 1981, a big twist came in their story. This year, Yamaguchi's third-generation leader Kazu Towaka died. Now a tussle began over who would become the next leader of the gang. In this tussle, Masahisa Takenaka and Hiroshi Yamamoto, both strong Yakuza leaders, wanted to make themselves the Oya-bun of Yamaguchi. To solve this confusion, finally 104 sub-gang heads held a voting. In this voting, Masahisa Takenaka got 57 votes and he became the new Oya-bun of Yamaguchi. Taking advantage of his defeat, Hiroshi Yamamoto formed a new Yakuza group named Ichi-Wake with 18 supporting gang leaders. In a short time, 6,000 members joined Ichi-Wake, who became the new leader of Yamaguchi-gumi. At that time, they were equal to half the members. Although Yamaguchi, by adopting various tactics, took back 3,000 people out of the 6,000 people who had gone to Ichi-Wake, but Yamamoto could not tolerate this defeat, and that is why on the 26th of January 1985, Yamaguchi's boss Takenaka was attacked and murdered. After this, Yamaguchi declared war against Ichiwakase. As soon as this happened, the police raided Yamaguchi's officers and confiscated all their weapons, but even this did not stop him. He ordered rocket launchers and machine guns with the help of the US and continued this war against Ichiwakase. This war proved to be a big moot point for Japan's 300-year-old gang culture. At that time, more than 200 armed shootings took place in Japan. It was very difficult to get the common people out of the midst of this gang war. The Yakuza gangs had already started to dominate the country, and now people were getting fed up with these gangs and their mutual fights. After this, two such trigger points occurred due to which the Japanese government, which used to support the Yakuza earlier, now turned against them, and a negative sentiment started developing overall. So, in 1980, there was a big economic downfall in Japan, but even in this economic downfall, the Yakuza did not stop taking protection money from common businesses. Due to this, people were getting fed up with the Yakuza. Then, during this time, as you can see in the chart, the use of drugs had also increased a lot in Japan, and on top of that, far from stopping in such a period, the Yakuza had also started importing a new synthetic drug from South Korea. Due to this, drug abuse was increasing a lot among the Japanese youth, and the sentiment of the people of the country was becoming negative towards the Yakuza. Seeing the increasing crimes of the Yakuza, the Japanese government was forced to pass the Anti-Boryo Code, i.e. Anti-Gang Law, in 19922. As soon as this law was passed, a heavy crackdown on gangs began in Japan. By the end of 1994, the gangs that opened in the middle of cities were completely eliminated. But if you remember, I had said in the beginning of the video that many people in Japanese society considered the Jew as a necessary evil. So why was it so? Because they have also done a lot of social work for Japan, like in the Kobe earthquake in 1995 and the Tohoku earthquake in 2011. They helped people by giving humanitarian aid, which created a positive perception of them in the minds of people. But if this is really the case, then apart from these two earthquakes, many other earthquakes have also occurred in Japan. Disasters happened, so why did they not help then? Well, the answer lies in the timing of these disasters. If you pay attention, the Kobe earthquake happened in 1995 and the Tohoku earthquake happened in 2011. In both the years, the government had cracked down heavily on these gangs by passing anti-UJA laws. In both these periods, a very anti-UJA narrative was created in Japan. And that is why, according to the reports of Japan Today, they helped the public both these times only to whitewash their own image and gain public sympathy. Now, if we talk about today's date, it is not at all that organized crime or gang culture has completely ended in Japan. On the contrary, in today's time, a bigger problem is arising. Today, these gangs are directly tapping school and college children. They are tapping youths and making them criminals. First of all, you should watch this ad. This ad is for a part-time job in Japan, which is called Yamibato job. In this, about 35 lakh yen are being given for straight robbery. Actually, a very interesting trend is developing in Japan. Gangs are getting young boys of 15 to 20 years of age to commit theft. The police there are calling these gangs Tokur Bol. They are getting the children to commit theft and crimes by giving them instructions online in the name of offering them part-time jobs. The police of Japan have caught 10,000 Tokur users so far, and in 2023, Tokyo police arrested 6 such people who had stolen 300 million yen, which is equivalent to $1.92 million from a watch and gold shop after getting lured by such part-time jobs on social media. Such robberies have become very common in Japan. This year, between the 18th of September and the 1st of October, 7 such robberies have taken place in Japan's capital Tokyo. All these robberies are also being carried out by boys recruited on the pretext of part-time jobs, and this is an organized crime effort. So even today these organized criminal gangs have not stopped in Japan, rather their operation is continuing. They are evolving according to today's current scenario, but the most interesting thing is that as we came to know today, the CIA had completely destabilized Japan. They had set up underworld mafia gangs there only so that they could use Japan as their pawn in the USA versus USSR Cold War, and as you already know, this is not the only story for the USA. The US has totally destroyed many countries of many continents. Look at the Middle East, look at Africa, even look at South America. They're the messiah of democracy and humanity. The US judge always kept its national interest supreme over any other country so nicely. Actually, I have made a detailed video on this issue. If you are interested, then you can check it out by clicking here, and thanks for watching this video. If you got to learn anything new from this video, then definitely give a like. See you next time, take care.